Today is Super Tuesday, and we've been following along as states across the country begin to wrap up voting. We join our live coverage now in progress.
In 21,000. The Massachusetts voting rules for today: independent voters can participate in either primary, and independent parties do not appear on the primary ballots. Joining us this evening from the Boston Globe is Emma Platoff. She's a political reporter there. Emma Platoff, walk us through the results in Massachusetts. What are the headlines?
So far, the headlines are kind of what we expected. We just got projections from the Associated Press that President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump are going to win their respective primaries here as expected. And that puts them, further, not that Massachusetts has so many delegates to offer, but puts them further along in their path to securing their party's nominations.
What are you hearing about or seeing with exit polls? What are voters saying in Massachusetts?
Well, we had a team of Globe reporters kind of fanned out across the state today. And what we're largely hearing is what the polls have shown us for months, which is that this is a presidential rematch that very few people are interested in seeing. Even the people who did vote today, turnout, it's worth noting here, was expected to be a lot lower than it was in the last two presidential primaries here. Even those folks who did make it out to vote on kind of a damp, gray day in Massachusetts said they were not that excited about their options. Many said they were voting, for example, for Nikki Haley as more of an opposition to Donald Trump than out of any sort of genuine enthusiasm for her. And there's been a growing movement among Democrats here to vote no preference over Joe Biden in sort of a protest of his handling of the ongoing conflict in Gaza.
Describe the voters of Massachusetts. What is this? How would you characterize the state?
Well, this is a wealthy and educated state. It's a very white state. I think for purposes of Super Tuesday, one of the most important things to note is that almost 2/3 of voters here are not affiliated with a party. And so under the open primary rules in Massachusetts, that means that a huge portion of voters here can participate in either primary. So given the sort of relatively more exciting contest on the Republican side, a lot of folks were expecting some people who typically vote for Democrats or many unenrolled and independent voters to cast ballots for Nikki Haley today. That's one of the reasons this is more fertile ground for her than many of the closed primary states also on the ballot today.
So what should people watch when they see these results as they are starting to trickle in?
I think what we're looking at is the margins. The headlines are not going to be a surprise. On the GOP side, the question is just how much support can Nikki Haley accrue here? If she can keep Donald Trump below 50%, she has a chance of earning some of Massachusetts' 40 GOP delegates. But under the rules here, if he exceeds 50%, then it's winner take all for him. And on the left, the question for Joe Biden is just how many voters turn away from him for the no preference option. There were protests here over the weekend in Cambridge, one of the most liberal parts of the state, where voters were saying, cast your ballot for no preference as it appears on the ballot, in order to demonstrate you're unhappy with how President Biden has shown ongoing support for Israel in the current conflict with Hamas.
Emma Platoff with the Boston Globe. Thank you for that update. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
As she said, in the Massachusetts GOP delegate allocation, there are 40 delegates at stake, allocated based on statewide results. If a candidate receives 50% or more of the vote, they get all of the delegates. This is how it works for the Democrats. There are 92 delegates at stake. 60 are allocated proportionally based on 9 congressional districts, and 32 are allocated based on statewide results. Lisa in Minnesota, Elko, Minnesota, Republican. Hi, Lisa.
Hey, how are you this evening?
Doing well. So what are your thoughts on Super Tuesday?
Thank you for taking my call, even though obviously I'm not part of the primary voting on Super Tuesday, but I'm just so thrilled to see former President Trump back in this race. And I'd love to see this state turn red in 2024. We almost did in 2016, and he has my vote again based on his border control and his energy independence that he had created for us on his first term. So I'm thrilled to see it. I'm not surprised, and looking forward to November.
All right. Well, Minnesota is voting today in the Super Tuesday.
Oh, good. I wasn't sure it was Minnesota. I didn't vote today, but I'll absolutely be voting for Trump in the in the national election. So just thrilled, absolutely thrilled.
All right, Lisa, and the polls close there, 9 p.m. Eastern time. Stephen in West Springfield, Massachusetts. Hi, Stephen.
Yes, hi. I just wanted to make a statement that, I voted today, and I'm not really happy with either candidate, but I definitely will not vote for Joe Biden. But I want to tell you one thing. Previous callers ago, mentioning how the Republicans don't want to work with Biden on the border problem. But, the Biden and his administration remind me of, like, the Three Stooges, an episode I saw as a kid. They went in the back of a mansion. They snuck in. They released mice and ants, etc., as exterminators, and then they went around and knocked on the front door and said, "Do you need any exterminators?" And then they looked around, they realized they had bugs, and they said yes. I mean, Joe Biden is the problem with this border problem, and now he wants to pretend like he wants to fix it. And that's basically all I have to say. And besides, he's just not fit to be president again.
All right, Stephen there in Massachusetts, who voted today in one of those Super Tuesday states. Immigration, border security, important issue to him. John McCardle, more results from these states tonight. What'd you find out?
Greta, Steve is in Massachusetts. Let me pop over to Vermont, right nearby in New England. Still very close in Vermont. We're creeping towards 50% of the expected vote total in. Donald Trump leading just 48.6% to 47.8% over Nikki Haley. It seems like we're going to be watching Vermont, the Green Mountain State, down to the wire tonight, so we'll keep an eye on that one for you. And then Donald Trump declared the winner in Texas. Most of the polls are closed in Texas. There's a few that stay open till 9, and so they just closed 10 minutes ago. So now all the polls closed in Texas, and Donald Trump officially declared the winner of the Lone Star State with 75.8% of the vote. Nikki Haley at 20% of the vote. Let me talk about a few more races in Texas, including the Senate race there, but I'll show you the Democratic side of the results in Texas. Joe Biden declared the winner in Texas for the presidency. Now let me take you to the Senate race. Ted Cruz is declared the winner of the Republican primary to run for re-election for his seat in Texas. No surprise there, though the Senate race in Texas is one that Democrats are targeting. It was a wide field of 9 candidates running for the Democratic primary in Texas. Colin Allred, the Democratic congressman there in Texas, with 65.6% of the vote. That's important because if he stays above 50%, he'll avoid a runoff, can turn right to the general election from the primary and not have to wait for the runoff to happen in Texas. So we'll continue to watch the Senate race in Texas. And as we said, that will be one of the races targeted for control of the Senate come November. For all of our results tonight, as always, Greta, send viewers to cspan.org. That bar at the top of the page for Campaign 2024 is where you can find all the results.
Lone Star State, one of the big hauls for tonight's Super Tuesday, a population of over 30 million. 77.4% of them are white, 13.4% black. And the Latino population around 40.2%. 24.8% are under 18, while 13.4% are over 65. Texas voters, around 18 million of them. There is no party registration in Texas. Affiliated with a party by voting in its primary, or you sign an affidavit of affiliation. No party registration. Registration ends 30 days prior to a primary. So that's how it works in Texas. Roger in Oklahoma, you're one of the Super Tuesday states. Roger, did you vote?
Yeah, I sure did. I was the first one in my at my precinct to vote this morning at 7 o'clock, and I voted for Nikki Haley. I'm in a distinct minority in this state. I'm a lifelong Eisenhower Republican, and there aren't many of us left here. I think Trump will carry this state. all 77 counties. That's what usually happens. I think he will carry all 77 states, and I think he will be elected president. That scares me to death, but I think he's going to win the presidency again. I will be voting for Joe Biden. Like I say, I'm a lifelong Republican. The first candidate I voted for as a young man was Richard Nixon, and I have voted for Hillary Clinton and voted for Joe Biden, and I expect to vote for President Biden again. But I'm a rare bird here in the Republican Party.
Roger, why vote for Nikki Haley in this Super Tuesday contest?
Well, I'm sort of a never Trumper. I as I say, I'm an Eisenhower Republican. President Eisenhower would work with the other party. I mean, Roosevelt chose him to command the European theater of the war because he could get along with all the different allies when he was president. They had sometimes he had a Democrat majority. He worked with Lyndon Johnson. His attitude seemed to be, didn't seem to be, his attitude was, it doesn't make any difference who gets the credit, what's the problem, and what's the best solution, and I will support that. And Nikki Haley strikes me as being of the same mold. I'm not saying she'll be another Eisenhower. We can only hope. I don't think she'll be elected. Sadly, I don't think she'll be elected president. But anyway, I voted for her today.
All right, Roger. Let's hear from Josh, who's in White Oak, Texas, a Republican, another Super Tuesday state. Josh, thanks for calling in. Tell us how you voted.
Hey, Greta, I voted Republican. I voted for Donald Trump. It's my opinion that Donald Trump's the only political candidate that can't be bought.
Oh, I'm sorry, Josh, I didn't hear that last part.
I said Donald Trump is the only political candidate that can't be bought.
Okay. And you're referring to what?
I'm referring to his influence is for the American people, and it's that simple. It's not paid for by anybody or any person or any organization.
All right. And Josh, who did you vote for in that Senate race?
Ted Cruz.
All right. You like the way Ted Cruz has represented the state in the Senate?
I do. I like calling a spade a spade.
All right. Caleb in Norman, Oklahoma. Hi, Caleb.
Hi, how you doing?
Caleb, did you vote in the primary?
I did, yes.
And how did you vote?
I voted Libertarian for Chase Oliver.
And tell us why.
I don't think either of these parties that are the major parties represent the real Americans that I know and I see here on the streets.
Okay, and why do libertarians represent real Americans?
Libertarians will look out for your actual rights instead of just trying to figure out how to spend your tax money. We run one way or the other on all these countries all over the world in conflicts that are happening on the other side of the ocean that don't have anything to do with us.
Is that one of the most important issues to you in this election?
That's very important to me.
What are the other issues?
I think gun control is a very important issue, immigration, abortion, things like that.
Okay. Caleb in Oklahoma, one of the Super Tuesday states. Jonathan is connected in New York, Democratic caller. Hi, Jonathan. Welcome to the Super Tuesday conversation here this evening. Go ahead. Jonathan, your turn in Schenectady, New York. One last call for you. All right, Tim, Oak Hall, Virginia. Hi, Tim.
Hey, how are you?
Did you vote in the
going
primary?
Pretty smooth? Yes, I did.
Okay. How'd you vote?
Biden?
And why are you supporting the president?
Well, he's done really well the last 4 years, and I really feel sorry that other people don't realize that by them not voting as a, they're trying to make some kind of a statement. It's a vote for Trump, and just can't have that.
Well, and what's your concern there?
Well, really? Well, I don't know. There's about 1,000 things you can think of why I wouldn't want to vote for Trump. Whether it's all the 91 charges, it's all the other states, it's sex involvement, it's his intention to buddy up with Putin and the other oligarchs in the world. I don't understand people's thinking. He hasn't been a big help to the farm, unfortunately, but I guess we have to forego that and hope for something better.
All
And
right.
of course, I wish he was 20 years younger.
Tim Ocall, Virginia, saying he wishes 20 years younger, voting for Biden. Dan in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. Hi, Dan.
Hello.
Dan, what are your, how are you this evening on the Super Tuesday? What are your thoughts on campaign 2024?
Well, hearing so much about ardent support and many thoughtful people and many just ardent and ignorant, overriding consideration for our country's president is the person who knows how to keep the country safe. And Trump has given the false impression that he thinks he can do that. And I don't think he can be trusted. And his first Secretary of State he picked said he was an idiot. All the people he worked for in national defense and the Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, John Bolton, and his last Secretary of Defense, they all say, and of course General Kelly, who we picked as a national advisor before Bolton, they all say the man is dangerous, that he should not be president. We're not going to have any country at all. I mean, everybody wants to solve the open border crisis. It's got to be solved, and Trump should get credit for that without having to prevent the next year of problems to get worse and allow his people, including his constituency, to suffer just to make a point. We know you're strong on the border. Most people like that. I get that. But the problem is you want to make a historic statement by doing something important. That's what he wants. And he's made a deal with Vladimir Putin. He's the only president that I know of that has ever had completely secret meeting, and actually more than one, with all kinds of precautions to keep anyone from knowing what was stated. But his communications with Putin started before he was elected president. It's proven clearly, beyond a doubt, with indictments against Russian officers that Russia helped Trump win.
All right, Dan, there in New Jersey. Lots of calls tonight with folks' thoughts on Biden, President Biden, and the former President Trump. We're getting Super Tuesday results tonight in the presidential nominating contest, but there's also some down ballot races that we'll be talking about this evening as well. Throughout the evening, California is one of the last states tonight. Their polls close 11 p.m. Eastern time. So throughout the evening, we're going to get your reaction to the states that are closing from coast to coast, the results that we're seeing, and your thoughts on campaign 2024. John McCardle is with us this evening as well with more results.
Oh, Greta, I'll have plenty of down ballot races for you in California when those polls close. There's plenty to watch there. Let me stay on the East Coast here for a little bit, though, and Vermont. We're watching Vermont closely. 53% of the expected vote total in the Republican primary in Vermont. Donald Trump at 48.9%, Nikki Haley at 46.5%. A lot of eyes on that race. It could be one where Nikki Haley pulls off the upset, though. Look at those numbers on the total votes in. It's right now it's about 30% of, I'm sorry, about 30,000 votes in, and they're only separated by a couple hundred votes. This could be a 60,000 vote race in Vermont, Greta. We'll continue to see what happens and what develops in the Green Mountain State. A few other results for you. We'll stay on the Democratic side of the aisle. In Colorado, Joe Biden declared the winner there. You can see that line for non-committed voters, 25,000 non-committed voters in Colorado. That's seen as perhaps a protest vote line. At least it was in Michigan, a whole campaign there to get those voters who disagreed with Joe Biden's handling of Israel when it comes to the war in Gaza to vote non-committed. The non-committed line ahead of Dean Phillips and Marianne Williamson in Colorado. To the state of Maine, Joe Biden Minnesota first. Joe Biden is leading in Minnesota, just 1% of votes in the state of Minnesota. Polls closed in the land of 10,000 lakes at 9 p.m. Eastern time. You can see that uncommitted line in Minnesota getting some votes there as well. And now let me take you to Maine. The numbers in Maine are in. Joe Biden declared the winner, even though just 22% of the expected vote total has come in. The Associated Press calling it for Joe Biden. Dean Phillips there in second place in the state of Maine with 6.6%. By the way, an interesting, perhaps humorous tweet from Dean Phillips coming at about 8:42 p.m. Eastern time saying, "Congratulations to Joe Biden, the uncommitted line, Marianne Williamson, and Nikki Haley for demonstrating more appeal to the Democratic Party loyalists than me." That tweet from the official account of Dean Phillips tonight on this Super Tuesday. More results for viewers to check out on their own. If you want to do it, you can go to cspan.org.
Let's talk a little bit more about how it works in the state of Maine. You saw the results there that John shared with you. There's same-day registration for voters not affiliated with a party. Party affiliation must have been changed 15 days prior for registered voters. And Democrats received waiver in 2023 to use rank voting system for the 2024 primary. This is how the state voted in 2016, the last time there was a GOP contest there. Ted Cruz won the state, 45.9% of the vote, and the former President Donald Trump, running for the first time then, came in second place with 32.6%. In 2020, when there was a Democratic contest in the state, Joe Biden won it, 34.1%. Bernie Sanders trailed him there by 1 percentage point at 33%. Back to calls and your thoughts on Super Tuesday. Jarrett in Washington, North Carolina, Republican. Hi, Jarrett.
How you doing?
Doing well.
That's great. So yes, I voted today. I voted for Donald Trump, and I'll be very surprised if Donald Trump doesn't go all the way, because every rally he holds, I see the place packed. I see every freeway exit blocked off. I see just mass amounts of people. And if he does not win, I will be very, very surprised. And the reason why I voted for him is because I believe in the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms, and I believe every American should have the right to do so without a piece of paper telling you can do so. And I hope he'll fight for our rights when it comes to that. And yes.
All right, Jarrett. All right. Well, the magic number for the former president to secure the nomination is 1,215 delegates. Political observers say he's likely to reach that number in the next primary contest. That is March 12th, Georgia, Mississippi, Washington, Hawaii, Republican only. The March 19th, you have some Arizona, Florida, Illinois, Kansas, Ohio. It's one of those two dates that he is likely to reach that magic number. Jim, Alexandria, Virginia. Hi, Jim.
Hi. Hello.
Hi, we're listening.
Hi. So, I find the 2024 events, it's really not what I learned when I was going to school. It's less about the person than it is about the special interests that seem to be filling their pockets and stuff. So for me, I have the 3 T's for the 2024. It's toxic, terrible, and a turnoff. I think it's absolutely for example, terrible the way Dean Phillips is being treated by his own party and stuff. Before I tuned into C-SPAN a few minutes ago, I listened to CNN, I listened to Fox, and I listened to MSNBC, and those girls on MSNBC are absolutely ruthless. So thank you, C-SPAN, for what you do. But, I chose not to vote today, and that was my choice, because I'm still trying to figure out what the heck is going on.
Well, which way are you leaning?
But I'll be voting. I will make sure that by November I cast my ballot for Donald Trump, because I think he's the best for what we offer.
All right, Jim's thoughts there in Alexandria, Virginia. Janice in Cedartown, Georgia, Republican. Janice, thanks for being part of the conversation tonight. Go ahead.
Well, I'd just like to say thank you for having me on. And I'd like to say that I believe that you have to have a stand when it comes to abortion. And these people that are Democrats that are for abortion and say they can let that child live, and when it's 9 months and they bring it out and they let it die, that's murder. How many people are in prison today because of feticide? They accidentally had a wreck and killed a child. How many people are in prison today, but yet the Democrats want to do it, and they get by with everything. They get by with murder.
Janice there in Georgia, abortion, an important issue for her in this campaign cycle. Rolando, Garland, Texas. Rolando, did you vote in the primary?
Excuse me?
Did you vote in the primary today in your state?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. Who'd you vote for?
Well, I was kind of forced to vote for the Republican candidate, which I don't like how they do that, where you have to choose a party that you have to vote for. I wish it was an open primary, because there's some people on the Republican side that I like and some that I oppose, such as like Ted Cruz. I'm not really fond of him, so I was hoping to vote for Alred, but I had to choose for a side, and I don't like how the Republican Party is shaping up, how they're moving from this neoconservatism to this populism. I prefer more like the Ron Paul types, those libertarian types, Justin Almansaw, who voted to impeach Trump, and people like that. And hopefully someone like Rand Paul or like Vivek Ramaswamy, hopefully it runs again in 2028. And yeah, that's basically all I have to say.
All right. Rolando, hoping that Vivek Ramaswamy runs again in 2028. Now, Vivek Ramaswamy on some of the ballots, even though he suspended his campaign, and as John McArdle showed you earlier, he is racking up some votes in some of these primary states tonight. Kia, in an independent, let's hear from you next.
Hi there.
Hi,
Can you hear
Kia.
me?
Yes, we can.
Hi there. So I vote independent, but, I listen to callers call in, and I'm perplexed most of the time because I feel like people just do not do their research. People always say that Trump is a threat to democracy, but what did he do in his 4 years to show that he was a threat to democracy? We were not in any wars. We did not have an open border. Prices were not sky high at the stores. I mean, my shampoo and conditioner I used to buy were $4.97 with Trump. Now with Biden, they're $8.97. Literally everything that I buy has doubled in price. So I feel like people are very emotionally immature, and they don't use any logic, common sense, or rationale, and they use their feelings. Your feelings do not matter. You have to look at and vote for people who have policies that will be beneficial for you and your families. And people are constantly like, I don't like Trump because of this or that, and it's nonsense. I'm like, go back and look at the full interviews of things, and if you watch TV, which I do not, I don't even own a TV, but I'm like, go and you do your research, and then you find out. But there's so much hearsay, and, I blame the media, and also people just being willfully ignorant for the most part. And as far as the border, that's my main reason for voting for Trump, because I travel 1 to 2 times a month, and for the last 3 years, every flight that I take, they load it up with illegals. And we have homeless people on the streets. We have veterans on the streets. We have children that cannot eat, but yet we send all this money and all these resources everywhere else, and we don't take care of home, which is why I will be voting for Donald Trump. And, that's it.
All right. Kia, supporting the former president. We are taking your calls this evening on this Super Tuesday, so keep dialing in. Join us for the conversation with your thoughts on campaign 2024 and the results that you're hearing about tonight. Republicans 202-748-8920, Democrats 202-748-8921, and Super Tuesday voters dial in at 202-748-8922. All others 202-748-8923. More of your calls coming up, but first, John McArdle with results.
Greta, as long as this Vermont GOP presidential primary stays close, I'm going to keep coming back to update you on the numbers there. So right now, 51% of the expected vote total in, Donald Trump leading 48.4% to Nikki Haley's 27.1%. 0.2%. One worth watching, and a lot of folks are now watching because of how close this has come. Let me take you to a few down ballot races, though, that we're watching. In Texas, there was never really a doubt that Donald Trump and Joe Biden were going to win their respective primaries there. No doubt that Senator Ted Cruz was going to win his primary for re-election. He has. That race has been called. The question was on the Democratic primary side for the Senate race, and Congressman Colin Allred is leading 62.3% in that race to take on Ted Cruz in the general election. And the key here, it was a pretty crowded Democratic primary. If he stays above 50%, he can avoid a runoff and turn right to the general election. So the congressman hoping to do that to take on the senator in what is expected to be a marquee battle heading into the November races. A few other down ballot races to tell you about in the 18th District House primary, the Democratic primary. Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee is running for re-election. She's been in Congress since 1995, but a lot of eyes on this race for a number of reasons. It was expected to be competitive, and she was running against Amanda Edwards, a former city councilor and one-time Sheila Jackson Lee intern. Sheila Jackson Lee, though, showing her strength in this race, 62.2% to Amanda Edwards, 35.6%, 41% of the expected vote total is in that primary. So if that holds, Sheila Jackson Lee likely to return to Congress for another term. Tony Gonzalez, the Republican in the 23rd District in the House, also was expected to have a tough primary race. He's below the 50% threshold in Texas right now, but just below 49.1% there. There's about 55% of the expected vote total in that race. So we'll keep watching that race to see if the congressman does get into any trouble. And then one more down ballot race to tell you about. We'll bump over to Alabama, to the Yellowhammer State, the 1st District House primary there. An interesting one because it's a member-on-member race. Republican Congressman Jerry Carl and Republican Congressman Barry Moore were redrawn into the same Gulf Coast districts. So in this member-on-member race, it looks like Barry Moore has the early advantage, 66.5% to Jerry Carl's 33.5%, but only 10% of the expected vote total in. So that's one that bears watching as we move on throughout the night. All of our totals that we're showing you available, along with all of the races tonight, on our website at cspan.org.
It's Super Tuesday, the biggest primary day of the year, and we are getting your thoughts on it this evening. Also, part of the conversation is Mabinti Kwashi, who is a national political reporter with the Washington Examiner. Thank you for being with us this evening. What do you think about the results that you've seen so far, and what are the trend lines?
I think the major trend lines is that Donald Trump is likely going to win all, if not most, of the Super Tuesday states today. I know that he and Nikki Haley are neck and neck in Vermont, but no matter what happens, that won't really stop him from his march to the GOP nomination. Obviously, he won't get the nomination tonight. He won't reach that threshold to be the presumptive nominee. That'll come maybe in a week from now, maybe 2 weeks, but he's having a good night. Haley, she tried to preempt tonight and is not doing any public remarks. I think she made the wise choice, seeing that she hasn't really won as many states as she would need to be a true competitor to Trump. We're also seeing tonight that, President Biden is steamrolling Congressman Dean Phillips and Marianne Williamson. And there was a lot of attention paid to the Michigan primary, where the uncommitted vote got 101,000 votes. We're not seeing a big uncommitted, no preference vote popping up tonight. But again, more results are coming. But if I were Biden, I'd still be feeling good. He's going to sweep all the states tonight. And I don't think the uncommitted vote is poised to be a big problem for him tonight.
No concerns then for the incumbent president so far in these Super Tuesday results?
No, I think both Biden and Trump are feeling very good tonight. They went in tonight knowing that they were going to come out as the presumptive nominees. Like, it's not official, but it's going to happen this month for both of them. Trump will likely give some sort of victory speech tonight. I don't think we're expecting Biden to speak, but I'm sure his campaign will put out a statement And we've already seen Congressman Phillips put out a very unconventional tweet where he seemed to be upset with the losses that he's facing tonight. So I think the president and Trump are feeling very good tonight.
Where was Nikki Haley hoping to do well, and what do you think that means for her prospects for staying in past today, Super Tuesday?
Right. So last week I had covered her campaign stops here in Virginia and also in DC. We saw her on Sunday win the DC GOP primary. So I think she was really hoping for a win in Virginia, given that it's a more moderate southern state. That didn't happen. Donald Trump still won, which is a big blow for her campaign. And she also lost Maine tonight, which was another one of those states where moderate, independent, Democratic voters who wanted to protest Trump could have voted, and that's just not happening for her. And I think what's noticeable with the Haley campaign is that she was barnstorming the Super Tuesday states up until today, but she has no public events for today or the rest of this week that we know of. So I think her campaign is very likely reevaluating the future of her path and career after tonight. I think it was during the South Carolina primary where one of her surrogates, New Hampshire Governor Chris Sununu, said that if she didn't win any states on Super Tuesday, there wasn't really a path forward for her. And right now, she's still neck and neck in Vermont. That's not a solid win, although it could be a win. But I want to say, even if she does win, winning one state on Super Tuesday when Trump has steamrolled you for most of the primaries, it doesn't bode well for the future of her campaign.
Mabinti Quashie is with the Washington Examiner. She's going to spend some time this evening with all of you answering your questions or responding to your comments about Super Tuesday. Mabinti Quashie, there's not just these presidential primary contests. We also have some down ballot races that are interesting. We heard some results from John McArdle. Which ones are you watching?
So I'm actually watching the Alabama race between Representative Moore and Representative Carl. They both have been serving in Congress for a while, and this is a member-on-member primary. One of them will not emerge, and one of them will not have a career, after this year. So I'm looking at that, and I want to also talk about Alabama because with the state Supreme Court ruling where frozen embryos were legally considered children. There's a Chief Justice Supreme Court race going down in Alabama, so I'll be watching that race just to see how results turn out. Obviously, some of the bigger down ballot races, California, there's that big Democratic primary on who will replace the late Senator Dianne Feinstein. We have Congressman Adam Schiff. We've got Congresswoman Katie Porter and Barbara Lee. California is a jungle primary, right? So only two of them will emerge, and it doesn't have to be two Democrats. It could be a Republican who also makes it to the jungle primary. So we're watching that. I'm also looking at Texas, where will Congressman Colin Allred, will he emerge as the Democratic challenger to Senator Ted Cruz? I haven't seen the results yet for Texas. I don't think those have been announced, but I will be watching that as well.
All right. Well, we will update you and our viewers as we go along here. Let's talk to Peyton, who's in Durham, North New Hampshire, Democratic caller. Hi, Peyton.
Hey, how are you? Thank you so much for C-SPAN. You guys are terrific. So for me, the worst part here is realizing where we are, I guess, as a country, and that the GOP is going to nominate Trump again. And unfortunately, he represents the party. And that's shocking because you have someone that spent months planning non-peaceful transfer of power. You had January 6th. You had, as president, trying to shake down, the president of Ukraine that led to the first, impeachment charges. So you have someone with no moral character, no historical view of the country, that does whatever is transactionally in his interest, and always outforce power. And that's very scary. And so what you have is essentially, the GOP voting for a wannabe dictator. And the worst part is unfortunately, I think that's who we are on the other side, and that is shocking. And I hear a lot of callers call in and they voted for Trump. I mean, Did they not pay attention when he was president? There weren't very fine people on both sides.
All right, Peyton there, a Democratic caller. Mabinti Kwashi, what are we seeing from exit polls about Republican voters, those that are participating in that primary contest across these Super Tuesday states? What are they saying?
You know, there have been a few exit polls that are a bit worrying for Trump. In Virginia, there was a certain amount of Republicans who said they wouldn't vote for the GOP nominee if it were Trump in November, right? And so that was a big part of why Nikki Haley was running, is that she made the argument that there were some Republicans who just don't want Trump because of his chaos. And so I think that exit polling is a warning sign for Trump that yes, he will get the GOP nominee this month, but he still has to be able to convince independents and swing state voters to support him and back him in November. Because again, those voters cost him 2020. I'm thinking about Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and so if he doesn't find a way to appeal to them between now and November, he could lose re-election again. So I think his campaign will likely start thinking about what it will take to convince those independent voters and swing state voters, or even voters who are concerned about his 91 indictments, how to bring them over to his side. And, obviously the Biden campaign will clearly be, emphasizing Trump's chaos, his drama, in an attempt to make sure those voters, those independent voters, those swing state voters, those disaffected Republican voters don't support Trump, or they stay home in November.
Just to add to that, from AP's VoteCast survey out of Virginia, Republican voters said slightly over half of them say the former president fit for presidency if he's convicted of a crime. 68% of Haley voters unwilling to say they'll support the party's nominee, whoever it is. What do you make of that last characteristic?
That's pretty stunning. Part of the reason why I find it stunning is because Trump's hold over the GOP it has been unrelenting, and I have done several stories about how with every indictment he faced last year, his popularity kept growing and growing. But now that we have this 68%, according to that VoteCast, saying they wouldn't vote for him if he got convicted, that's a big deal, and I can certainly understand why his lawyers, his team, are really trying to get prosecutors to delay his trials, because it's not going to help him at all if he gets convicted in any one of those indictments that he faces. I think right now we're living in this pseudo possibility, an indictment could happen, but it hasn't happened. So maybe some Republican voters who are concerned about Trump are still willing to back him. But if he gets charged and convicted with a felony, that changes things, and he could lose voters, right? That could be the end of his re-election campaign against Biden.
It is Super Tuesday. It is the biggest haul of this primary contest for both the Republicans and Democrats. There are more contests to come, Mabinti Kwashi. So does the former president tonight in his remarks try to reach out to those independents that you're talking about, or is it still too early?
That's a great question. I think it would be wise for Trump to try to reach out to those independent voters. But I think that the fact that Nikki Haley isn't doing a speech tonight where she could possibly drop out is probably the sort of thing that would irk Trump. Remember, in Iowa and in New Hampshire, when Nikki Haley lost, she gave these very triumphant speeches that really angered former President Donald Trump. And he noted that in his victory speeches. So past speeches from Trump seem to suggest that no, he's not going to make that outreach to independent and swing state voters tonight. However, maybe if his team can convince him that we are, in the general election season, even though it's pretty early, that maybe now is the time to start reaching out. Maybe he will say something conciliatory tonight, but there's a 50-50 chance given Trump's back and forth when it comes to Haley, and especially because she's not dropping out tonight, not that I know of.
And we are approaching 10 p.m. Eastern time. The former president has not given remarks yet. We expect him to do so shortly from Mar-a-Lago, his estate there in Palm Beach, Florida. David in Richmond, Virginia, while we wait, let's hear from you.
Yes, thank you for taking my call. I voted today and proudly voted for our President Biden. And the reason is because I feel like Trump want to take us back to a dictatorship. Furthermore, when he was in office, he took the tax code. He took away the personal exemption, which cost me and my family over $3,500. And it had a chilling effect on federal agencies in Washington. So I would never vote for Trump.
David's thoughts there in Virginia. Let's hear from Frederick in Dallas, Texas. You're next.
Yes, thank you for having me. I just voted today. I'm pretty much an independent voter, but I lean more towards the Democratic side of it, maybe more moderate. I just don't understand why people would actually vote for Donald Trump, a person that you can't really trust what he actually says. Any policies he's come up with, I don't remember too many of them being new. They're old or something that's been rehashed, and some that he actually take credit for that he actually hasn't not thought of or brought to the table. So I just don't get what people see in him, his appeal, because he doesn't seem like he did anything for the country. And I really thought that someone who is being indicted couldn't run for president or any office, but maybe it's if he's actually convicted, I guess.
All right, Frederick. Mabinti Kwashi, what did you hear from those two callers?
Yeah, so there's a lot of, opposition and, trying to understand why Republican voters would support Trump, especially when he's under indictment. And I think one thing that non-Trump voters really underestimate is just how popular he is with the GOP. I have covered like the entire Republican field for this 2024 cycle, and the energy and the excitement at a Trump campaign, it doesn't compare to a Nikki Haley campaign or a Nikki Haley rally. It doesn't compare to when, Governor Ron DeSantis was running or a Senator Tim Scott. What I think people don't, or maybe people are underestimating, is how much people see Trump as a part of themselves. And if he is being attacked, then they are being attacked. And so they, again, every time an indictment happened, his support went up, his fundraising went up. When that mugshot was released last summer, I mean, that just went through the roof for his fundraising numbers. It led to like his second highest fundraising numbers, I believe, but I'd have to double check that. So again, when you talk to voters or Republican voters, like, why are you supporting him? They don't actually think that the 91 indictments that he's facing are credible. They think it's the deep state, a hoax, the weaponization of the government against Republicans. They are wielded to Trump. And if you listen and you follow his campaign speeches, he does say, they are doing this not just to me, but to you. Trump has molded himself with the average GOP voter, and I don't think there's much that could dislodge that support, not even, or maybe if he were convicted of a felony, that might change, but as of right now, he is deeply popular and will remain so.
Mabinti Kwashi, we want to thank you for joining us in this conversation tonight. For our viewers, you can follow her reporting if you go to the Washington Examiner's website, the National Political Reporter. We appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
More of your calls coming up on this Super Tuesday evening. We're also waiting for the former president to mark his victories tonight until we hear from him. C-SPAN's John McCardle.
Greta, let me just go over a few of those down ballot races that you and Labinti were just talking about, and some of the ones that she said she was interested in watching and looking for results on. Starting in Alabama, in the 1st District of Alabama, the Republican primary. Again, this is a member versus member race because 2 Republican congressmen got redrawn into the same district on the Gulf Coast of Alabama. It's Congressman Barry Moore and Congressman Jerry Carl. 14% of the votes in, expected vote total, according to the AP, and Barry Moore holding his lead, although it's tightening at 59% to about 41%. for Jerry Carl. So we'll keep watching that one for you. Over to the Lone Star State of Texas, the Democratic Senate primary. It's a crowded primary. If Congressman Colin Allred stays above 50%, he will earn the opportunity to face Ted Cruz in the general election. He seems to be winning the race handily, 12% above that 50% threshold. That's the runoff threshold, according to Texas election rules. Back to the presidential races, back to the Republican primary in Vermont. That's the close one tonight that we're watching. The Vermont numbers are coming in at 57% of the vote total in, and Donald Trump at 48.1% to Nikki Haley's 47.5%. It tightened since the last time we checked in with you, Greta, and seems to be back in that tightening mode. Donald Trump was stretching his lead for a little while there, but Nikki Haley still keeping it within 2% throughout the night as the results have come in the Green Mountain State. One other state where results are in and the race has been called, Colorado. Donald Trump has won the Republican primary there with about 63% of the vote. And then one more for you in the land of 10,000 lakes in Minnesota. Donald Trump has won the Republican primary with about 70% of the vote, less than 50% in, but the Associated Press calling it for Donald Trump. Donald Trump has been racking up the wins tonight as expected on Super Tuesday. And maybe the best way to demonstrate that for you, Greta, is to just show viewers the last 9 posts this evening from Donald Trump's Instagram page. It started about 2 hours ago in Virginia. Donald Trump saying, "Thank you, Virginia. Donald Trump wins Virginia." And then a few minutes later, it was this post, Donald Trump wins North Carolina. And then this post, Donald Trump wins Arkansas. And then this post, Donald Trump wins Oklahoma. It kept going. Donald Trump wins Tennessee. Donald Trump wins Texas. The posts kept coming on his Instagram page, Massachusetts following, and Colorado. And then this most recent one, Donald Trump wins Minnesota. Sort of a dream set of posts over the course of 2 hours for any candidate who would be running on Super Tuesday. And then Donald Trump also getting the accolades of his supporters, including Senator Lindsey Graham, posting this at about 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time, saying President Trump is on track to not only win the Republican nomination, but be elected as our next president in November. He enjoyed an overwhelming victory this Super Tuesday and is clearly the choice of Republican voters to be our standard bearer in 2024. It goes on for a couple more paragraphs there, but that's the post from Senator Lindsey Graham. All the results tonight available on our website for you to sort through on your own at cspan.org.
Let's focus in on Minnesota while we wait for the former president to address his supporters in Mar-a-Lago, Florida. The state of Minnesota, with polls closed at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. The population there, about 5.7 million, 82.6% are white, 7.6% black, and 6% Latino. The total population of Minnesota voters, about 3.5 million. There's no party registration. Here are the voting rules for Super Tuesday in Minnesota. Voters identifying as Democrats must affiliate with the Democratic Farmer Labor Party, the DFL party. That's what they call it in Minnesota. Uncommitted will appear on a DFL ballot if you get one, and the Republican Party has the option to write in a candidate. Billy in Arkansas, Republican. Back to our conversation with all of you. Your thoughts on Super Tuesday?
Yes, hi. Thank you for taking my call. First of all, I want to do a little bit of background. If everybody remembers when Trump was in office and with the war in Afghanistan, everything was going fine. Then when Biden won and started pulling all of our troops out of Afghanistan, that's when the trouble began. And also about the southern border, Trump did what he thought was right, and Biden, he had stopped all that. everything that is going wrong at the southern border is all on Biden. That's in my opinion. And
all right, Billy, I'll leave it there. I'm going to go to Dale next, who's in Canyon Lake, Texas, Democratic caller.
How are you tonight?
Hi, Dale. Did you vote in the primary?
I didn't, but my kids did, and they're Trump people. And
what are the conversations like?
Today,
you're a Democrat, so what are the conversations like with your kids?
Well, I kind of try to stay away from it, but after they voted today, they asked me, well, if you believe in Biden so much, why don't you go vote today? And I said, well, he's going to get it anyway. And they said, well, you should go vote anyway. And I sat down with them, and they showed me a bunch of figures from when President Trump was in office and how much more it's cost us all since Biden's been in office. And they won me over. So I'm going to vote for Trump in November.
Okay, and did you vote for Biden in 2020?
Yeah, I did. And I thought it'd be a lot different, but he disappointed the heck out of me. So I guess I'm becoming, what my daughter say, I guess I'm MAGA now.
All right. Dale in Canyon Lake, Texas. Vincent, Staten Island, New York, Democratic caller. Vincent, you're next.
Hi, how are you? Yeah, I voted for Dean Phillips as a moderate guy. I like his ideas on term limits, getting the cost of living in control, and fixing immigration. I'm really more of like a Jim Webb Democrat from 2016. I would have voted for him, but they didn't give him a chance. Just like they're not giving Kennedy a chance. I think if it comes to the actual election, I might just go with Kennedy as an independent. I don't think Biden really is a center-left representative ever. Bill Clinton much more so was center-left, but Biden was never really a good representative over his lifespan as a person, apart from his Catholicism, which he doesn't represent at all well, and especially what he did to the Justice Thomas years ago. So for those reasons, I did in 2020 feel a pull toward Trump after all the dishonesty going on against him with the FBI and whatnot. But I held out and didn't vote back then. But there's no way I could go with a guy like Biden then or now or ever, for that matter.
All right. Vincent in New York, Democratic caller. Ying in Nashville, Tennessee. Ying, good evening to you. Did you take part in the Super Tuesday primary in your state?
Yes, I did. I vote. I just want to let you know I was not born in United States. I was from China. I actually experienced the Chinese Cultural Revolution. So I saw that this country really play out the Cultural Revolution since 2020, smartphone, take out those statues, say those founding father the bad people who, have the slavery and discard those founding father. And remove every history that is very similar to the Chinese Cultural Revolution. So I kind of very worry about this country heading into communist that direction. I have seen Democrats really do those things like to play race car. And, this country shouldn't play race car, everybody equal. But then when Trump was in as a president, that this country, Antifa, Black Lives Matter, or burn the street, burn the business, but the people really look like a Chinese Cultural Revolution.
Okay, Ying, we heard your thoughts there. We'll go on to Thomas, who's in Stafford, Texas. Thomas?
Hi, yeah, how are you?
Doing well. Did you vote today in the primary?
I voted for Nikki Haley because I believe that, you know, if the journalists and the vice presidents of the, CNN and MSNBC that think that Donald Trump is literally Hitler. So they're going to do everything that they can to prevent him from being president. So, like, the only thing that you can do is vote for Nikki Haley, as a backup plan. Other than that, I voted for Ted Cruz.
All right, Thomas, and have you voted for Ted Cruz in the past?
Of course. And thank God they don't have Beto on the Democrat primary.
Thomas, what do you like about Senator Cruz's record?
Say again?
What do you like about Senator Cruz's record? How he has represented you?
I like that he's a straight shooter. He is a very conservative man, and he believes in family values, and he kind of disagrees with the former the senator, that stepped down a few days ago, said he was not going to pursue his Senate leadership.
Oh, Mitch McConnell. Senator McConnell.
Yeah. So
all right.
I don't think Ted Cruz is anywhere near being the Senate Majority Leader, but hopefully they vote somebody in. I don't think it should be Cornyn.
And why not?
Well, I don't like Cornyn very much. I like Ted Cruz a lot more than I like Cornyn.
And what don't you like about Senator John Cornyn? Thomas?
Well, all right. Well, there's other thing. There's a couple other things I wanted to say. So about Donald Trump. So I just don't understand how the journalists and all the vice presidents of, MSNBC, CNN, they hate him so much. I mean, why do you hate this guy so much?
All right, Thomas, you already made that point. We'll leave it there. John McCardle.
Greta, let me just follow up on that John Cornyn comment, the senior senator from Texas running for that leadership post. Just because it came across this just a few minutes ago, John Bresnahan, journalist from Punchbowl News, with this tweet. Senator John Cornyn, who is running for that Senate Republican leader post, has now endorsed term limits for that post. Republican leaders are exempted from term limits under their own rules right now. Cornyn had to step down as the Republican whip because he was term limited, and John Thune will hit his limit at the end of this Congress. So a little bit of news on John Cornyn and how he may run the Republican leadership post if he is elected to that position. Let me come back to results, though, tonight, and the storyline that we've mostly been following, the one Republican primary that seems to be pretty close and coming down to the wire here, continues to be the Green Mountain state of Vermont. The numbers there in Vermont still within 1%. Donald Trump at 48.2%, Nikki Haley at 47.3%. There's about 60% of the expected vote total in at this point. So we'll continue to keep an eye on that race of Super Tuesday. And then let me talk about a state that is not on the Super Tuesday list. It is having its primary on March the 19th. That's the Grand Canyon state of Arizona. The news today out of Arizona, Senator Kristen Sinema is stepping down from her Senate seat at the end of this year, deciding that she won't run again, the independent senator from Arizona. This is the Hill newspaper with their headline on Instagram about it. The move now means that the Arizona Senate race has largely been solidified as a matchup between Democratic Congressman Ruben Gallego and Republican former gubernatorial nominee Kari Lake. It's expected to be one of the marquee Senate matchups this cycle, no longer setting up to be a three-way race, but a straight-up race between the Democratic nominee and the Republican nominee, or at least the expected nominees. Let me stay on Kyrsten Sinema for a second, though. She made her announcement that she won't be running again via a Twitter post. It's about 3 minutes long. I'll play you the first half of it, explaining why she's decided not to run again.
In 2017, I warned we were approaching a crossroads. Our democracy was weakened by government dysfunction and the constant pull to the extremes by both political parties. I promised I would do my best to fix it, to protect and defend our Constitution, to listen to others without judging, to focus on what unites us, and to make Americans' lives better. Through listening, understanding, and compromise, we delivered tangible results that make America safer, stronger, and more prosperous. Yet, despite modernizing our infrastructure, ensuring clean water, delivering good jobs and safer communities, Americans still choose to retreat farther to their partisan corners. These solutions are considered failures, either because they're too much or not nearly enough. It's all or nothing. The outcome, less important than beating the other guy. The only political victories that matter these days are symbolic, attacking your opponents on cable news or social media. Compromise is a dirty word. We've arrived at that crossroad, and we chose anger and division. I believe in my approach, but it's not what America wants right now. I love Arizona, and I am so proud of what we've delivered. Because I choose civility, understanding, listening, working together to get stuff done, I will leave the Senate at the end of this year.
Senator Kyrsten Sinema in her post on Instagram and Twitter today, setting up what's now expected to be one of the marquee races on the Senate map this election 2024. Greta, will have more results from Super Tuesday throughout the night. And a reminder to our viewers, if you want to check in on the results yourself, check out that Campaign 2024 banner at the top of our webpage at cspan.org.
Yeah, all the Super Tuesday results can be found there, as well as our Campaign 2024 coverage. Tonight is a big night, as we've been telling you. A third of the total delegates are at stake, and more than 70% of the delegates needed to clinch the nomination for both parties. It's been an expensive election cycle. Take a look at the spending for both presidential and down ballot races through March 4th. California, where the most money has been spent, over $129 million. Texas, another big state tonight with many delegates at stake, $55 million. In North Carolina, the ad spending about $30.8 million. A lot of money spent in the state of Alabama because of the redistricting that happened there. And you've got incumbents now drawn into the same district and competing against each other. A lot at stake in the state of Alabama. And then Arkansas, about $1.1 million spent there. Back to calls. Tyler in Florida, Republican. Hi, Tyler.
Hey, how's it going? First off, thank you so much for having me on your show.
You bet. What are your thoughts on Campaign 2024?
Definitely think that it has to be Trump. I mean, nearly every Trump policy that was reversed by Biden has hurt our country and impacted each of us, from trade to border security, of course, which what's been happening there is either blatant ignorance or intentional, if you ask me. I mean, basically what it comes down to, in my opinion, is all you have to ask yourself, in the famous lines of Ronald Reagan, is, are you better off than you were 4 years ago?
Tyler, what would you say about the governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, and his candidacy?
I think that everything that he's done in our state has been an exemplary great impact to our country. I mean, everything that he's done, I've supported for the most part.
Do you think he should have stayed? Do you wish he had stayed in the race?
No, I don't think he had a chance. I mean, the Trump presidency is pretty strong, and it's pretty hard to compete with.
All right, Tyler's thoughts there in Florida. Let's hear from Stephen, who's in Lawrence, Kansas. Hi, Stephen.
Hi, Greta. You're doing a great. Hi, Greta. You're doing a great job.
Thanks,
you look
Stephen.
beautiful as always. You're a beautiful person. Now, I think the $64,000 question here. It's obvious Trump is waiting until Vermont is called, and Nikki is ahead by about 2,000 votes, and she'll make history as the first woman to ever win a GOP primary. But she just needs to take that victory and go home. I mean, this is getting ludicrous. I would love to know what the callers think of why she is still in this race. What she's not going to win. She's not going to get proportional delegates. This race is over, and she's destroying her own career. I'm just fascinated by what is keeping her in this race. No one seems to have a very good reason as to what, and for her not to even make a statement tonight is a terrible miscalculation. I think it's just tone deaf. It's not anything, it's inexperience. Maybe she's young and she has many more years ahead of her. And this is going to be people are going to remember this when after Trump is gone. I guess the RNC chair quit tonight. So Nikki Haley, please get out right now if you know what's good for you and you're smart about your political future.
So, Stephen, you say that that this is bad for Nikki Haley's career. Why? Oh, we lost Stephen. Well, it looks like the former president has entered the room with his supporters in Mar-a-Lago. We'll bring you there live now.
Stand up next to you and defend her still today, 'cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. From the lakes of Minnesota to the hills of Tennessee, across the plains of Texas, from sea to shining sea, from Detroit down to Houston and New York to LA, where there's pride in every American heart, and it's time we stand and say, there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today, 'cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA.
Well, thank you very much. They call it Super Tuesday for a reason. This is a big one. And they tell me, the pundits and otherwise, that there's never been one like this. There's never been anything so conclusive. This was an amazing night, an amazing day. It's been an incredible period of time in our country's history. It's been sad in so many ways, but
I think it's going to be inspiring because we're going to do something that, frankly, nobody's been able to do for a long time. We've watched our country take a great beating over the last 3 years, and nobody thought a thing like this would be possible. We wouldn't have Russia attacking Ukraine. We wouldn't have Israel being attacked. Iran, as you know, was broke. When I was running things, they were broke. They didn't have money for Hamas. They didn't have money for Hezbollah. We had no inflation. Inflation is destroying the middle class. It's destroying everything. Inflation, if you look back over the history, hundreds of years back, inflation is called a country buster. And that's what it's doing to our country. What's happened with inflation has been unbelievable. A lot of people say, a lot of experts have said the stock market's the only thing that's doing well, and that's doing well because our poll numbers are so much higher than Joe Biden's. He's the worst president in the history of our country. There's never been anything like what's happening to our country. Today it was announced that 325,000 people were flown in from parts unknown. Migrants were flown in, airplane, not going through borders, not going through that great Texas barrier that I was with the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, the other day, and we were looking at the job they're doing. But in the meantime, they're pouring into California and they're pouring into Arizona because those governors aren't doing anything. They're doing nothing. But today it was just announced before I came out. It was unbelievable. I said, that must be a mistake. They flew 325,000 migrants, flew them in over the borders into our country. So that really tells you where they're coming from. They want open borders, and open borders are going to destroy our country. We need borders and we need free and fair elections, or we don't have a country. This is an incredible group of people. So many celebrities that I'm not going to introduce any because I'm just going to get myself in trouble if I do that, because I'll leave out most of you. But this is a room chock full of incredible, talented people, like some of the guys standing right in front of me, right? Big, big futures, big, fat, beautiful futures. Oh, I'd love to be your age. I'd pay you a lot of money to be your age. But we have some tremendously talented people in this room, including tremendously talented political people that have helped me right from the beginning. We had the safest border in the history of our country. We built 571 miles of wall. We had Mexico supply us with 28,000 soldiers because we wanted them, that's why. And they said, we won't do that. I said, yes, you will, you will. And in the end, they did. It was an easy negotiation, but we had the safest border, the best numbers we've ever had, and now we have the worst numbers probably in the history of the world. It's sad to see what's happening to our cities. Our cities are being overrun with migrant crime, and that's Biden migrant crime. But it's a new category of crime, and it's violent, where they'll stand in the middle of a street and have fistfights with police officers, and if they did that in their countries from where they came, they'd be killed instantly. They wouldn't do that. So the world is laughing at us. The world is taking advantage of us. 3 years ago, we were at a level, we were energy independent. We were going to be very shortly energy dominant, and today we're getting oil from Venezuela. Can you believe it? And we're doing numbers on that oil. You know what we're doing? We're refining the oil. We have our refinery for that oil. It's really, I call it tar. It's not oil. It's terrible. We have real stuff. But we're refining it in Houston. So for all of the environmentalists, you ought to look at that, because all of that tar is going right up into the atmosphere. You just ought to take a look. It's the only plant that can do it. We have the only plants that can take tar and make it into oil, and that's what it is. It's a shame. But we were energy independent. We were going to be energy dominant. We were going to be supplying oil to Europe, all over the world. And then a tragic thing happened during the election. It was a tragedy, because you wouldn't have, think of it, all of the problems that you have today, I don't think you would have had any of them you'd only have success. And that's what's ultimately going to unify this country and unify this party. We have a great Republican Party with tremendous talent, and we want to have unity, and we're going to have unity, and it's going to happen very quickly. And I have been saying lately, success will bring unity to our country, and it happened before. We had the best economy our country's ever had, and people were calling me that I would have said will never happen. It'll never happen. They wanted to get together African American, Asian American, Hispanic American, women, men, people with diplomas from the best schools in the world, and people that didn't graduate from high school. Every single group was doing better than ever before, and it was a beautiful thing. Our country was coming together. Our country was coming together. And now we have a very divided country. We have a country that a political person uses weaponization against his political opponent. Never happened here. It happens in other countries, but they're third world countries. In some ways, we're a third world country. We're a third world country at our borders, and we're a third world country at our elections. And we have to stop that. We need a fair and free press. The press has not been fair, nor has it been free, but maybe someday they will be. They're being beaten up pretty badly. People aren't trusting them. They're not believing them. And really, it's a very important factor. The press used to be the policeman. It used to police our country. Now nobody has confidence in them, and we have to get that confidence back. It's so important for the success of our country. So important. So this has been a day that we've been waiting for. I want to thank my family for being here. It's a great family. I have a great family. They've had it very easy since I decided to run for politics. They say, thanks a lot, Dad, we appreciate it. But they're strong, and they're very capable people, and they love the country. They really do love the country, and we appreciate it. And I want to thank everybody, my staff, Susie, Chris, incredible job. Incredible job you're doing. I read an article yesterday where it said this is one of the finest run campaigns that anybody has ever seen. That's pretty good, right? That's pretty good. It's really a statement. And we have no choice, because November 5th, it's right around the corner, November 5th is going to go down as the single most important day in the history of our country. We're going to take it, and we're going to make it like it should be, respected. Right now, we're not respected. Right now, our country is known as a joke. It's a joke. Other leaders who I speak to, other leaders can't believe what happened to us, because 3 years ago, we were the most respected country anywhere in the world by far. We were doing things that nobody could believe. China was paying us billions and billions of dollars. In 25 years, they paid us nothing, zero, not 10 cents. I was getting billions of dollars, and they were happy about it, as happy as you can be. Of course, maybe there's reasons for things having happened, but they were not so happy with certain things, I guess, based on things that took place. But we were getting along with everybody. We were getting along, and we were respected by everybody. We had no wars. Remember when I had the debate with Hillary Clinton? She said, look at him, look at that personality. He's going to cause wars. I said, no, my personality is going to keep us out of wars, and that's what happened. For 20 years, they were fighting ISIS. I defeated ISIS in 4 weeks. I got rid of ISIS 100%. 100% of the ISIS caliphate. And we had no wars, and we stopped wars. We weren't getting along with a lot of countries. All of a sudden, North Korea, which is a serious nuclear power, but North Korea came along. Kim Jong-un, we got along very well. We got along very well with China until COVID. That was a little bit too much, as far as I was concerned. That was too much. Couldn't take that one. But we made a trade deal with China that I don't even talk about. $50 billion a year in product they bought from our farmers, our manufacturers. They used to buy 10. I got 50, and it was great. But COVID, I don't even talk about that, because COVID was such a horrible thing. It started in the Wuhan labs, just as I said, the Wuhan labs. And it came out, I believe, through incompetence. I believe it was incompetence. Some people think it wasn't, but I believe it was. But regardless, it caused $60 trillion worth of damage and death all over the world, all over the world. And we did a fantastic job on that. We never got credit for that. Unbelievable job on that. We came up with things that nobody thought was possible. Don't forget, when it came in, nobody had an idea what it was. They didn't even use the word pandemic. Nobody had an idea. But we did a fantastic job. And we got a lot of credit for the economy, a lot of credit for our foreign policy. I think credit like nobody, very few people have gotten. And the press was very honest about it. They give us very high marks on foreign policy, the Abraham Accords, so many different things we did. But we never got the kind of due that we should have for the COVID, or as I call it affectionately, the Chinese virus, the China virus, which is a much more accurate term. And despite that, the stock market, when we turned it over, the stock market was higher than it was prior to COVID coming in. It was an amazing thing. We did an amazing job, and we have so many people that worked on that, so many of the doctors, so many of the scientists that worked with us on that. It was really, really something. But there's never been an administration that had more success in so many different elements. We got the largest tax cuts in history. We have the largest regulation cuts in history. We rebuilt our military. And what happened, we rebuilt our entire military, and beautiful. We had jet fighters that were 53 years old, and we had all brand new jet fighters. And then after this other group of people that didn't know what they were doing, they took over, and we had that horrible surrender in Afghanistan. I call it a surrender. We took the soldiers out first. You know, I dealt with the leaders of the Taliban in Afghanistan. They were the ones that were causing the trouble. The press was very angry because they said, "Why are you calling them?" I said, "Because that's where the problem is." I say oftentimes, they asked Jesse James, "Jesse, why do you rob banks?" He said, "Because that's where the money is." And I said, that's where the problem is, with the Taliban. And I spoke to Abdul. He's still the leader. Believe it or not, he's really the leader of Afghanistan, but he's the leader of the Taliban, a rough group. I say, don't ever shoot our soldiers again. Don't ever do it. Very interesting what happened is that, we were having, during the Obama administration, previously, they were shooting a lot of our soldiers, and I let them know. I said, don't ever, ever let that happen. I said in a rather nasty fashion. We don't have to go into it tonight. For 18 months, we lost nobody in Afghanistan, and then we had that horrible, horrible withdrawal where we lost 13 soldiers, 38 horribly wounded, left Americans behind. You know, you have Americans right now still behind. Call them hostages if you like. It was a terrible moment. We left $85 billion worth of brand new, beautiful equipment behind, jets and tanks and everything you could think of, goggles, night goggles. They didn't used to fight. They're good fighters. They didn't used to fight at night, but now they do because they have goggles. They have better goggles than we have. So I just want to tell you that led to a lot of bad things, and now the worst things are happening. The things that are happening now are unthinkable, and they're unthinkable at the border. We have millions of people invading our country. This is an invasion. This is the worst invasion probably. We've never had anything like it. No country has ever had anything like it. The number today could be 15 million people. and they're coming from rough places and dangerous places. And we had that shut down. We had everything going so beautifully. When Joe Biden goes to the beach, because somebody on his staff thinks he looks very good in a bathing suit, until he can't get his feet out of the sand or lift the chair, which weighs about 9 ounces. Joe Biden, if he would have just left everything alone, he could have gone to the beach. He would have had a tremendous success at the border and elsewhere. So we're going to take back our country. We're going to make sure we are going to do it right. We're going to have the greatest economy ever in the history of our country. We're going to top what we did. We're going to become an energy center of the world. We were ready to become energy dominant, and they stopped that. They stopped that. But we're going to become energy dominant. We're going to pay off debt. We're going to do things that nobody thought was possible. You know, we hadn't done our second phase of the tax cuts. When we did the tax cuts, the Democrats fought us very hard. And now they say, well, I guess that was pretty good because we took in much more revenues after we cut taxes. And then we did all of those regulation cuts, and people were working, and everybody was happy, and we were all proud of our country. But we're going to win this election because we have no choice. If we lose the election, we're not going to have a country left. And we're going to do something. Thank you very much. We love you too. And we love our country. And we can't let this magnificent, some people call it an experiment. I don't call it an experiment. I just say this is a magnificent place, a magnificent country. And it's so sad to see how far it's come and gone. When you look at the depths of where it's gone, we can't let that happen. We're going to straighten it out. We're going to close our borders. We're going to drill, baby, drill. We're going to get the inflation down. And we are going to make our country greater than ever before. And we're going to do it quickly. We're going to do it quickly. It's going to go fast. We have to get the criminals out. We have many, many criminals that have entered our country. We have people coming in from such bad places, and we're going to have to get them out. We have murderers that are being deposited into our country. We have drug dealers at the biggest and highest levels that are coming into our country. We have people coming into our country that just shouldn't be here, but many, and I say many, large percentages, they come in through the caravans, they come in many different ways. Now we find out again, they come in through airplanes, we send them in. This is crazy. But they come into our country, we're going to stop them. We're going to close our borders. We're going to have to deport a lot of people, a lot of bad people, because our countries can't live like this. Our cities are choking to death. Our states are dying. And frankly, our country is dying. And we're going to make America great again, greater than ever before. Thank you very much. It's been a big night. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Former President Donald Trump shaking hands of supporters in Mar-a-Lago at his estate there in Palm Beach, Florida. Fox News with the headline that the former president and the incumbent president, Joe Biden, sweeping Super Tuesday. We're getting your reaction to Super Tuesday results here on C-SPAN. John McCardle is also with us with results from the different states.
Sweeping Super Tuesday for Donald Trump and Joe Biden, but it may not be a clean sweep, Greta. Let me take you to Vermont first. We've been watching the results there all night. Nikki Haley is now taking the lead in Vermont. 77% of the total expected vote is now reporting, and Nikki Haley there ahead by more than 3 percentage points, almost 4 percentage points. So we'll continue to watch that state, the Green Mountain state there. And then let me take you to way out to the Pacific Ocean to American Samoa. This is the Associated Press tweet about what happened there tonight in the Democratic primary. President Joe Biden was sweeping every Democratic contest on Super Tuesday, except for American Samoa. He fell short there to a previously unknown candidate named Jason Palmer. Fox News' Chad Pergram with a little bit more on Jason Palmer, a self-described entrepreneur and investor. This is Biden's first loss in the 2024 primaries. Palmer gets a grand total of 4 delegates due to this win. Joe Biden will get 2 from American Samoa. And this is the tweet from the official account of Jason Palmer saying he's honored to announce his victory in the American Samoa presidential primary. Thank you to the incredible community for your support. This win is a testament to the power of our voices. Together we can rebuild the American dream and shape a brighter future for all. That's Democratic presidential candidate Jason Palmer. You can see all our results on our website at cspan.org. Just click that banner, Campaign 2024, at the top of the page.
15 states and 1 territory, as you just learned, voting tonight in this Super Tuesday contest. We're going to talk about Minnesota now, and joining us from that state is Sam Woodward, who is a USA Today political reporter based there. Sam Woodward, what do you make of the results so far in the Republican primary contest in Minnesota, and talk about the margins?
Absolutely. Yeah. So far, I mean, results have been slowly coming in, although 30 minutes after polls closed at about 8:30 Central Time, AP called the race for former President Donald Trump. Currently, we have about 65% of the votes in, and he's teetering a little bit below 70% now, with Nikki Haley just below him. Look, you know, as the results came in, they were really hot and fast for Donald Trump, and as it's about an hour and a half, a little bit past that, we're seeing Nikki, maybe lead isn't the right word, but she's garnering some more votes. And before he was at about 75%. And as we've calmed down, he's down to about 68.
What are suburban voters in Minnesota doing tonight, and why is it important to watch those votes?
Absolutely. Well, that's a great question. I mean, Minnesota suburban voters have always been extremely crucial. You know, those have been the purple counties surrounding the metro of the Twin Cities. So, you know, Scott County, even Dakota County, Carver County, you're thinking of these people that, you know, might be going from side to side, you know, whether or not that be going from a Biden vote in 2020 to a possible Nikki vote in 2024. You know, so far we can't tell from that, but from the people that I've spoken to in the suburbs, they are the most disaffectioned from both parties at this point. You know, they're very disappointed with the fact that it is looking to be a 2020 rematch between Trump and Biden. And as much as they wanted to see a maybe not a third party candidate come forward, but a viable alternate candidate from either party to be a strong leader for the United States in 2024, whoever that would have been, they didn't come about. And as we're looking forward through the suburbs and as those results come in, we're really looking to see whether or not Nikki Haley was able to garner some of that support, because that's where Donald Trump in 2020 had really suffered to garner that support.
Moving over to the Democratic primary contest in Minnesota, what role is the uncommitted vote playing tonight following Michigan's primary?
Absolutely. Here in Minnesota, I mean, to not compare to Michigan, because of course we don't have the same population, but we do have, as you're seeing, quite a significant interest in the uncommitted protest vote. You know, I was out at the polls all day today speaking with voters, and I spoke to a number of people that are voting uncommitted for a number of reasons. You know, significantly, one couple had said, I have been Democrat for my entire life, and I have supported Joe Biden through this presidency, and his lack of calling for a ceasefire in Gaza and his allyship with Israel is my final straw. You know, they have either said they will not vote in November or they will vote for a third-party candidate. But what matters is that today they voted uncommitted. Another person that I had spoke to had admitted up front that, yes, today I voted uncommitted, but I will for sure be voting for Biden in November. They had described this vote as a protest, almost as a scare to the Biden campaign, to really test them and say, you know, I'm a Democrat, I support you, I support most of what you've done, but you need to go further in making sure that the U.S. takes some part in stopping this violence. So we're seeing a lot of different strategy coming forward with this uncommitted vote, whether or not it will garner much more attention in other states or it will continue to follow through in November is something we've yet to see.
We see coming in third place in Minnesota so far, with 63% of the expected votes in, is the Minnesota Congressman Dean Phillips, 8.6%. What does that number tell you about his candidacy going forward?
Look, it's a great question. I spoke with Congressman Phillips last week, and I asked that very question, presuming that this was going to be the outcome. He has been very open from the beginning that he does not see himself as the perfect candidate to fill this position. While we had our conversation, he had said from very early on, when we learned that Joe Biden would be seeking re-election, he had really tried to get a solid candidate with a name recognition out there to be an alternate to President Biden. He admitted full-frontedly that, you know, he didn't have that option, so he decided to be the one to push that. One of the main issues that he had expressed was the fact that name recognition was a massive issue in these early primary states. So, you know, to a degree, I guess you could credit some of his losses to that. But also the fact that he really failed to distinguish himself from Biden early on in his campaign, other than being quite a bit younger than him. You know, he had a very, very close voting record to the president during his time in Congress. And during our conversation, you know, he admitted, I didn't spend a lot of time in Minnesota. Not only is he a congressman, but he was also trying to get name recognition everywhere else. And it's really a question of whether or not that name recognition in Minnesota was helpful for him tonight. I've spoken with a lot of his constituents in the 3rd District that are incredibly unhappy with him, whether that be they see him throwing away his seat for this long shot bid at the presidency, or something more granular as him missing so many House votes while he's on the campaign trail. Phillips had spoken to me and said that Hakeem Jeffries and him had come to an agreement saying that he would come back to DC whenever he was, you know, extremely needed for a floor vote. And when I had spoken with him last week, he was actually on his way back to DC. So, you know, it's very clear that there was a massive miscommunication with Phillips and his constituency. And it seems as though he's really failed to differentiate himself between the alternate candidate, who's the incumbent, and also making it clear that even to his home state, he was the right choice.
What has it been like on the ground in Minnesota? Have you seen a lot of activity heading into tonight's Super Tuesday? And what does it mean so far for voter turnout? What do the numbers look like?
Absolutely. Like I had said earlier, I mean, I've been at the polls since, 9 a.m. this morning, talking with various election officials, and every single election official I spoke to today was absolutely floored by the lack of people in those high school gymnasiums, in those recreation centers. You know, they were empty compared to what it's been like in past years. You know, a lot of the people that I've spoken to, the first question I ask is, how are you feeling? And it was never really excited. It was very meh. It was very, well, this is my civic duty. There's really this sense of not only disaffection for the 2 front runners that we now have called who have won the state of Minnesota, but also just this disengagement. There's been a lot of thoughts prior to, throughout my reporting, I've talked with people that, have been lifelong voters, whether that be lifelong Republicans or lifelong Democrats, that say, why should I vote if I know who's going to win? Polls throughout the past few months had predicted this perfectly. There were very few local polls that had done these types of tabulations about how Minnesota was fair, but all of them were correct in that Donald Trump and President Joe Biden would take home the victory today. So talking with voters at the polls, talking with people these past few months, it almost feels like a chore, a dreadful act from the conversations that I'm having with Minnesota constituents. And as we know, Minnesota took first place in 2020 for voter turnout. These are very politically active, vocal people, and we have consistently high voter turnout. Minnesota has passed sweeping voter access laws within the past 2023 legislative session, making sure that anyone that is eligible to vote has access to vote, whether that be re-enfranchising felons' rights, post-incarceration, or having additional language material for people that don't speak English. There have been so many different things that the DFL-led legislature has put on the table to make it as easy as possible to vote. And still today, talking with voters, seeing those, lack of lines, seeing those empty spaces in the gyms, it's not as exciting as I was hoping it would be, and I'm sure the election judges are feeling the same way.
All right, Sam Woodward, you can follow her reporting at USA Today. Thank you very much. And in Minnesota, by the way, there's 39 delegates at stake for the Republican primary contest, and for the Democratic contest, there is 75 delegates at stake. We've been telling you about Vermont and the presidential contest there. A winner has been called. Nikki Haley gets notches a win in the state of Vermont tonight. 83% of the votes expected are in, and she has been called the winner by the Associated Press, 49.7% to 46% for the former president. Back to our calls and your thoughts on Campaign 2024 and Super Tuesday. Ed in Beverly, Massachusetts. Ed, did you vote in your state today?
I did vote. I'm in Massachusetts. Voted Republican, so I think a Republican voter in Massachusetts is almost useless. But I voted for Nikki Haley. I'm a little surprised that just nationwide she's not doing better. I just think her message of trying to get away from the chaos of both Donald Trump and Joe Biden should be a stronger message than it's been. I'm a little surprised that she doesn't do better all around, but today was pretty clear. I think the results are pretty clear who the candidates are going to be.
Yeah, and so what will you do in November? Who will you vote for?
I will probably go third party and look at the Libertarian.
And why not the incumbent Joe Biden?
I really don't like Joe Biden. I'm a Republican voter and always have been, and I think Biden is. I don't see him as a leader. I think he's probably as much a puppet as anything, and there are probably people in the background pulling the strings and doing all the work, and every now and then they prop him up at the podium.
Ed, how did you vote in 2016 and in 2020?
I'm trying to think. In 2020, I would have voted whatever the Libertarian was. I don't remember the name even now.
Okay.
And 16, I honestly forget.
All right. Ed in Massachusetts, 40 delegates are at stake in that Republican primary contest tonight. 60 are allocated proportionally, allocated based on statewide results, and if a candidate receives 50% or more of a vote, they get all the delegates. And then for the Democratic contest in May, 92 delegates are at stake. 60 are allocated proportionally based on 9 congressional districts. 32 are allocated based on statewide results. Mike, San Diego, Republican. Mike, did you vote today?
Yes, thank you for calling. I kind of feel like...
Oh, we're listening to you, Mike. You dropped off there.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. I feel like Ed out here on the left coast as a Republican here in the belly of the beast in California. I was only primarily wanting to call because I want all of the folks that are for Biden and the folks for the left to ask themselves maybe a question. Are you better off today than you were 3 years ago? And I would venture to say that most Americans probably are not, especially due to 50-year inflation, disaster at the border. Do these people really want to pay for millions of people? Do they really want to go in their wallets? They want to have them live in their neighborhoods, go through their cities. Now they're being airlifted through past the border security. If you don't have a border, you don't have a country. And I guess, is this the America these people really want? I would venture to say that these are questions that people that vote for the left should ask themselves. My experience.
Mike, I will leave it there. We have another call from California. Scott in Fresno, also a Republican. Scott, did you participate in the primary today?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and who did you vote for?
I voted for Nikki Haley.
And why did you support her?
I believe that she represents strong leadership. She has a good record of working with a wide range of people, and I think that just overall she'll become she would become a great leader in terms of the presidency.
So who will you vote for in November if it is a rematch between the former president and the current president?
I don't know just yet. I'm going to have to determine. I did not vote for Trump in 2020. I did vote for him in 2016.
Okay. And why not in 2020?
Because I thought that he was just too divisive, and I just really, I should add, I did not vote for Biden in 2020 either, but I did not feel that Trump was a unifier. I thought he was more of a divider.
Okay. In California, a lot of delegates at stake. For the Republicans, 169. The candidate receiving 50% plus one of the votes will get all of those delegates. For the Democrats, there are 424 delegates at stake. 277 come from district level and 92 overall state delegates. That is how it is allocated in California tonight. The polls closing there at 11 p.m. Eastern Time, just a few minutes away. John McCardle?
Greta, just to follow up on the Associated Press call of Vermont, which we've been watching all night long. Nikki Haley extending her lead now with 90% of the expected vote total in. She's at 50%, and that lead is widening. So we'll continue to watch how that ends up. Nikki Haley winning the Vermont primary, and of note, it's her second win. You'll remember that she won the Washington, D.C. Republican primary over the weekend, though Donald Trump is continuing to march towards the nomination, racking up the majority of victories tonight. Jim Antle pointing out on his Twitter page that Donald Trump has passed 700 of the 1,215 delegates needed to win the nomination. And of course, the big state, the big haul state of California has yet to be called, and Donald Trump expected to win handily there as well. Jim Antle, if you don't follow him, the Washington Examiner executive editor, a good follow on Twitter if you want to follow. He also has an update on the Biden delegate numbers. Biden's closing in on 1,000 out of the 1,968 required delegates. When California does come in, Greta, there'll be plenty of down ballot races to talk about. But let me update you on some of the down ballot races that we've been following tonight. Alabama's first House district on the Republican side. The primary there is a member-on-member battle. That's because of redistricting. Congressman Barry Moore and Congressman Jerry Carl were drawn into the same district, and it is a very tight race there, as you can see. 56% of the expected vote total in, and the two candidates are now less than half a percentage point apart. So we'll see who moves on. One member will be moving on to the general election, and one member will not be in Congress in the next Congress. Another down ballot race to talk about that we've been following tonight, and that is in the 2nd House District of Alabama. This is on the Democratic side of the aisle. This race is the new majority black district that was formed in Alabama with the redraw of congressional lines there. It's pitting former White House aide and Department of Justice aide Shamari Figures running against the Alabama House Minority Leader Anthony Daniels. And you can see Shamari Figures is leading handily there. There's 84% of the expected vote total in on that race. And then another race that we've been watching and talking about tonight is the Texas Senate primary on the Democratic side. This is to see who goes on to face Ted Cruz in the general election. It looks like it'll be Colin Allred, although it hasn't been called officially for him yet. If he stays above the 50% threshold, he'll avoid a runoff and will be able to go right to the general election against Ted Cruz. And then one more to tell you about. This is staying in Texas, the 23rd House District of Texas on the Republican side. Congressman Tony Gonzalez was expected to have perhaps a tough primary battle here in his district, although he's winning handily as well with 90% of the vote total in. He's at about 46%, as Dave Wasserman of the Cook Political Report notes. Tony Gonzalez voted for bipartisan gun safety legislation in the wake of Uvalde, and the key here, again, is that 50% threshold. So he won't move on to the general election tonight if he doesn't crack 50%. As we said, he's below that right now. He's at about 46%. So that's one we'll continue to keep an eye on as well tonight, Greta. For all of our results, you can go to cspan.org and you can click on that Campaign 2024 banner right there on the top of the web page and check out the races you're most interested in.
All right, let's focus on the West Coast tonight. One of those states is Colorado. Joining us from there is Jesse Paul, who's a political reporter with the Colorado Sun. Jesse Paul, a lot of folks watching your state tonight after the Supreme Court overturned the Colorado Supreme Court. What do you make of the people in the Republican primary turning out and how they voted after that decision?
Well, it's interesting here in Colorado, unaffiliated or independent voters are allowed to cast ballots in partisan primaries, and you saw overwhelmingly they decided to choose to vote in the Republican primary. And I think the results in Colorado kind of reflect that. So as it stands, Nikki Haley's hovering at about 34% of the vote. Donald Trump's about 63%. So she should win some delegates out of Colorado. Obviously, Trump is overwhelmingly the winner, but I think it's a little closer than maybe Republicans would have liked. I'm not sure the Supreme Court case had much of an impact on what the results here ended up being, but I think the unaffiliated voters showed up to kind of send a message. We know that they don't like Donald Trump, and I think that's reflected in the results.
How many delegates at stake for the Republicans in Colorado, and explain the allocation?
I think there's I think it's about 75. It's a smaller number than there are for Democrats, and that's just because Republicans have smaller delegate numbers overall across the country. But basically, it's a proportional system where you start to get delegates after you secure more than 20% of the vote for Republicans. So I haven't done the math quite yet since the results are still coming in, but she should get, 5, 6, 7 delegates out of Colorado. Obviously, given the national picture, pretty bad night for her across the country. I'm not sure it'll make much of a difference, but Republicans are calling this Trump country. I think this result kind of shows maybe that's not quite the case.
How many different ways were there to vote in Colorado on this Super Tuesday?
Well, just in terms of actual choices, right? I mean, people could vote in person or on their ballot. In terms of the choices on the ballot, right? Colorado was interesting. We set our primary ballot back on January 5th, so a number of folks on the ballot are no longer in the race. Chris Christie, Vivek Ramaswamy, Asa Hutchinson are all on the ballot, and I'm looking at it right now. Thousands of voters in Colorado cast ballots for folks who aren't in the race anymore, so that they effectively threw out their vote. So, our turnout here overall was relatively low. It was kind of in 32% among active voters right before polls closed. I think it'll tick up kind of as more ballots get counted, but folks certainly had 3-4 weeks to cast their ballots, and just not a ton of excitement about this race given I think similar to how it is across the country, was kind of a predetermined outcome.
Any warning signs for the frontrunners here in both parties, for former President Trump and President Biden?
I think if I'm Biden's campaign, I'm feeling pretty confident. Colorado is a pretty liberal state, and there was a late push in Colorado to get people to vote for the non-committed delegate option we had here, but it's only hovering at about 7%, and Democrats here don't start allocating delegates unless a ballot choice gets 15% or more. So that's a pretty disappointing showing, I think, for some of the more progressive groups and people in Colorado who wanted to send a message to President Biden about the Israel-Hamas war. In terms of Trump, right? This was not. It's a convincing victory, but given Nikki Haley probably is not going to be her party's nominee, I think it's interesting that it wasn't totally an overwhelming victory. She's going to get some delegates, and I think it kind of weakens the president's position in the state. But Colorado's been trending blue for 2, 3, 4 election cycles here, and I think everyone fully expects President Biden to win in November. He beat Trump by 13 percentage points back in 2020, and I think all indications are maybe it tightens a little bit, but it should be a pretty solid victory for Biden in the general.
Jesse Paul with the Colorado Sun, political reporter. Thanks for your time this evening.
Thanks for having me.
Back to calls. Mike in Springfield Gardens, New York. Hi, Mike.
Hi, how you doing?
Good. What are your thoughts on Super Tuesday?
I'm a Democrat. Looking pretty good for the president right now. I think he's going to get reelected with no problem.
You don't see any issues? You don't see any weaknesses for the incumbent president?
No, I don't see no weakness.
Okay.
It's better than Trump. We can't trust Trump because Trump is he don't tell the truth all the time.
Mike's thoughts there in New York. Sharon's in Massachusetts. Sharon, did you vote in the primary today?
Yes, I did.
And how did you vote?
I voted for Nikki Haley. It was a hands down call for me.
And explain.
I'm very concerned. I am very, very concerned about what is happening to our country and what is happening in our country. I don't feel that the people in Washington are looking out for those of us who put them in their chairs in Washington. And if anyone has any doubts about Donald Trump, all you have to do is read the book by Jonathan Karl called Tired of Winning. It's a mind-blowing book. It took me 2 days to read the entire book. I voted for Trump in 2016. I thought he had a business sense. Then I read John Karl's first book, Front Row at the Trump Show, and found out that Trump has no business sense. Then I read Betrayal, and I watched January 6th from the beginning to end. And I was astounded. When I went to the Capitol as a young child, I went in the front door the first time, and the back door the second time, and my parents and I did not break a window to get into that Capitol. It was sad. It was disgusting.
And Sharon, how did you vote in 2020?
I voted for Trump in 2016. I voted for Biden in 2020. But in good conscience, I cannot vote for either one of them, and I don't know what I'm going to do in November.
Sharon in Massachusetts. Dennis, Toledo, Iowa, Democratic caller. Dennis.
Yes. Trump, he didn't protect us. How in Iowa, Molly Tibbetts made national news for being murdered. When Trump was president, he did not protect her. He was saying how he's a family man. Was he a family man to the first wife he cheated on? Or maybe he was a family man to the second wife he cheated on. I heard a Republican caller blame Democrats for abortions. Abortions became legal in 1973 when Nixon was president, and it was a Republican Supreme Court that made abortions legal, not the Democrats. And it's Biden who doesn't marry Ford bimbos like Trump. That's my comment.
All right, Roger in Great Neck, New York, Democratic caller. Hi, Roger.
Hi, good evening. Good evening. You're doing a magnificent job.
Thanks, Roger. And what are your thoughts on campaign 2024 and what you're learning tonight about these Super Tuesday states?
Well, I'm listening to I was listening, one of your callers. It's fascinating to watch the democratic process. Now, the caller before said DeSantis was great and all that. You know, he has a big war with Disney. Disney makes $80 billion a year nationally. I'm listening to Trump, and he makes it like it's the Depression, like it's like Hoover. You know, my father left Austria and in the 40s, and Trump to me is like Hitler. He does the big lie. We have the best economy. Israel is fighting, but you know, for their life. And you know, I feel very disgusted about Trump, and Trump makes you know, with his crime and all his things like Carol and Easy Carol and the document, and I can't. I will not vote for Trump.
Okay, Roger there in New York. More of your calls coming up here, and results from California. Their polls closed at the top of the hour, 11 p.m. Eastern Time. Brian Schott is joining us now from Utah. He's a political reporter with the Salt Lake Tribune. Brian Schott, explain how Utah voters participated in Super Tuesday today.
Democrats had a regular primary election, and here in Utah, we are a primarily vote by mail state. So those ballots went out to Democratic voters, and really any voter in any party who requested a ballot in the Democratic primary got one about 3 weeks ago. They could have voted in person today as well. On the Republican side, they decided to hold their presidential nominating contest as part of their party caucuses, which are held every 2 years here in the state. And we're getting reports that is not working out very well for them. Reports of chaos all over the place as their online system has crashed. They are having trouble registering people for the caucuses because they can't get internet at the schools where they're holding them. So they're going to be holding the election in these neighborhood meetings, but we have no idea when we're going to get any results because it is just a disaster, as it has been described to me in several places, especially in the most populous areas of the state, Salt Lake County and along the Wasatch Front.
So at this point, what do we know about the Republican primary?
Nothing. We really don't know anything. They're going to be calling those results in to the party as they get them, but the start of the caucuses were delayed. I spoke to one person who said that at one of the places they had over 2,000 people in line, and they were unable to get online because there was no internet at the high school where they were at. They couldn't register anyone. People were walking away. So I'm sure the results will start to trickle in parts of the state where they didn't encounter problems, but at the larger turnout parts, who knows when these are going to come in. I expect they're going to be sometime within the next hour or two, but it's really not a good look for the GOP here.
And give us the backstory. Why did they switch? I mean, why did they decide on a caucus?
Well, they did the same thing back in 2016, and what happened was in 2016, the party decided to have a caucus, and that forced the Democratic Party in the state to have a caucus as well, because the legislature decided not to fund a primary election just for the Democrats. Republicans here outnumbered Democrats almost 5-1. So the Republican-controlled legislature didn't fund that. So they both parties had to have a caucus. And again, that was also a disaster on both sides. Places ran out of ballots. People were standing in lines in terrible weather for hours. And after that black eye, the legislature passed a law in 2019 that said there would be a presidential caucus on Super Tuesday, but parties could opt out of it. So what happened this year is the Republican Party opted out of the primary. The Democrats decided to have a primary. The legislature funded it on the final day of the session, which just wrapped up last week. They decided to give the money that to the lieutenant governor's office that they had already spent on the primary. Part of the reason for that is the Republican Party charged each one of the campaigns $50,000 to appear on the ballot. That was the filing fee. There are six candidates on the ballot, even though Donald Trump and Nikki Haley are the only ones left in the race. So the party pocketed about $300,000, and that helped them because they have really been struggling with money for the past couple of years, and that helped them claw out of a hole. But you have to wonder if the juice is worth the squeeze because of all the problems that they're having tonight, and it's really just a black eye.
Brian Schott covering this for the Salt Lake Tribune. We will follow your reporting throughout tonight and tomorrow. Brian Schott, thank you very much for that update out of Utah.
Thank you.
We'll go back to John McCardle for some more results here this evening. John?
Greta, we'll take you out to the West Coast. We finally have some results coming in from California, very early results. 1% of the expected vote total reporting out of California in the Republican presidential primary. And no surprise, Donald Trump well ahead with about 72% of the vote. We'll take you to the Democratic side of the aisle. Their presidential primary, Joe Biden, also leading handily. Again, still just 1% of the vote total in. No percent of the vote total in when it comes to one of the key races that we'll be watching. Let me take you to the Senate first, though. I apologize. The Senate primary, and this is a key Senate race that we're watching tonight to see who will who will go to the general election to compete for the seat of retiring Senator Dianne Feinstein. Adam Schiff, the Republican congressman, is leading right now in the very early reporting in the Senate primary in California. Two other members of Congress running for that nomination, Congresswoman Katie Porter, the Democrat, and Congresswoman Barbara Lee, the Democrat. Now, the elections in California, the so-called jungle primaries, where the top two vote getters will go to the general election, regardless of party. So on that primary chart that you were just looking at, Steve Garvey is the Republican on that chart. He is a former Dodgers and Padres first baseman and has gotten a lot of attention in this race, running as a Republican, and he's in second place now with 21.9%. Again, the top two vote getters in the primary go to the general election. So will it be two Democrats? Will it be one of the members of Congress and Steve Garvey? We'll see what happens in California tonight. Though if California, if past is prologue for California tonight, it may be until tomorrow until we know the actual results. There's a couple other races we're watching in California, and those are the ones where it's 0% reporting right now. That's the 47th House District of California. It's a very competitive Orange County-based seat. It's the seat of Congresswoman Katie Porter, who's leaving that seat to run for the Senate. It's one of those majority maker seats, one of those ones that will be targeted in the general election. So we'll see what happens in that seat for this primary night. Another one where there's 0% reporting so far, that's the 20th District of California, and that's former Speaker Kevin McCarthy's seat. It's the race to replace him and we'll see what happens there. One note on Kevin McCarthy, he was doing an interview with Fox News tonight and had some comments about Nikki Haley. This from the Hill newspaper. Former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy praised the former United Nations ambassador Nikki Haley on Super Tuesday night, saying he'd like to see her have a role in a future Republican administration if she abandons her presidential bid. Kevin McCarthy in an interview with Fox News being reported by The Hill. We're showing you the tweet on C-SPAN tonight. And then one more race to keep you updated on and that we've been tracking all night long. That's not in California. This one's in Alabama, the 1st District of Alabama. This is just the Republican primary. It's the one that's pitting two current members of Congress against each other. That's because of redistricting. They got drawn into the same seat. Congressman Barry Moore and Congressman Jerry Carl in a very competitive race. 64% of the vote in there in the Gulf Coast-based seat of the 1st District of Alabama. Barry Moore leading, but it's not by much. We'll continue to watch that one for you. That's because the winner goes on to the general election and the loser leaves Congress. So we'll see what happens there.
All of our results, again, can be found on our website, cspan.org. CNN, by the way, projecting that President Biden wins 15 states tonight. Former President Trump at least 12 states tonight. There's a total of 15 states voting. Iowa is reporting its results on the Democratic side, and then one territory as well. We're getting your reaction to all of it tonight. Let's hear from Kevin in Webb City, Missouri. Hi, Kevin.
Hello. Yes. Hi. I voted for President Trump because he is a good politician. I think he's a good businessman. I think he's trying to help this country out a lot. And I think he is doing a great job, and I think he's doing a really good job doing what he does, and I think he's going to win tonight in a huge way.
All right. Nikki Haley scoring her first win tonight. State race, that is, the state of Vermont going to Nikki Haley. Carol in California. Hi, Carol.
Hi there. I have been voting since the days of JFK, so that makes me an old person, and I'm a registered independent living here in Orange County. I voted for Nikki, but since she not going to make it, I will be voting for Biden come October because I don't trust Trump. And I know if he's elected, he's already said he's going to let everybody out of jail from the people that tried to ruin our country in January 6th. And Trump just does not get along with other people, and I don't think that's a good representation of our country. So therefore, I will not vote for him ever. I think he's what I would call a con artist. I've known and kept up with him for years and years because I grew up on the East Coast, and he's not a trustworthy person.
So Carol, are you voting? Would you vote for President Biden because you oppose former President Trump?
Not really. I don't like what Biden's border policy has been. I can understand it to a certain point because I know California in particularly. I've lived in New Mexico, Arizona, and California, and I know all those states need farm workers and people who will do the work when our own people here won't do it. I know that, but I think it needs to be controlled better.
Okay. James in Alabama, Democratic caller. Hi, James.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. Your thoughts on Super Tuesday?
Super Tuesday is very conflicting right now because we got a lot of Democrat and Republicans running for races because they have segregated the area. Trump or Biden, I didn't vote for neither one of them. Trump has some good assets like Obama did, and also like other presidents. But at the same time, Trump is a great leader. He's not a politician, okay? He's the people's people. And the thing is, we don't need any politician. We need people for the people, and Trump is for the people. But at the same time, Trump contradicts himself. He does one thing and do something different, and he talks too much, okay? Just like right now in Alabama, we got all these Democrats that's going for office right now, but they're not from our district or representing our district. And that's the problem right now. The people are voting because of popularity and money. You got to follow the money trail. You know, people are funding money in because you have Democrats that's been backed by Republicans. and planting moles in that division, saying, "Hey, we don't want you guys to pass this bill." And the same way with the Republicans.
All right, James, millions of dollars spent in the state of Alabama so far in this 2024 cycle. The Alabama population is 5 million, 68.9% are white, 26.8% black, and a 4.9% Latino population. Here are the voting rules for the state of Alabama. A valid photo ID is required to vote. Registration only to vote, not to affiliate with a party. And voters who vote in a party's primary may only vote in that party's runoff election. Chris in Massachusetts. Chris, did you vote today?
I voted for Chase Oliver for the Libertarian nomination of president. Chase Oliver was the most influential Libertarian by Rolling Stone, and I believe he is someone who could take down Trump and Biden.
All right. Ken in California, independent. Ken, did you turn out to vote today?
I voted, yes. I certainly did, and I was interested in the Senate as well as the presidential elections.
How did you vote?
I voted for Katie Porter and Adam Schiff to go on, and I would like to say I voted for President Biden. There is always the problem that has been called out by some of your callers about people being career politicians. I think that Trump is a career insider. He knows how to work the system. So really, I am a Larry Hagan, Mitt Romney, Lynn Cheney Republican. If I were a Republican, if I were a Democrat, maybe I'd call it differently. I think we need more moderates. I'm sad to see Senator Sinema going out of the race, and I'm really glad Nikki Haley is running. I really am glad to see that.
So you think Nikki Haley should stay in, even after today?
Oh, absolutely. I want to see a convention. I want to see a real convention, not just a circus, you know?
All right. All right. Ken in California there. Back to John McArdle.
Greta, updates from the Golden State of California. The presidential primaries have both been called by the Associated Press, and it's no surprise. Donald Trump is declared the winner of the California Republican primary. Just 16% of the expected vote total in. Donald Trump winning handily right now at about 73% over to the Democratic side, and Joe Biden has been declared the winner as well by the Associated Press. Just 13% of the expected vote total in there, but the Associated Press feels confident enough to call it at this point. So the big haul states of California, their delegates will both be assigned accordingly to Donald Trump and Joe Biden. And then we'll update you on the Senate race as well. Again, the jungle primary system, as it's called out in California, means the top two vote getters in this primary will go on to the general election. They're 17% in right now, and the top two vote getters are Adam Schiff, the Democratic congressman from California, at about 36%, and Steve Garvey, former professional baseball player, Republican, in that race. Two other Democratic members of Congress are running, Katie Porter and Barbara Lee. You can see their vote totals there as well. We'll continue to watch that one for you. And then another primary that we were watching throughout the night was out in Texas, the Lone Star State. In that state, Congressman Tony Gonzalez was facing a tough primary challenge. He's winning right now, 45.8% to Brandon Herrera's 22.6%. There's other candidates in that race as well, but the rules in Texas are you have to get 50% plus one vote to avoid a runoff. And Tony Gonzalez is currently below that, so it looks likely he'll be headed to a runoff with Brandon Herrera unless that number changes in the last 16% of the expected vote total that will be coming in. We'll continue to see, but several storylines to watch tonight, even though there wasn't a whole lot of action at the top of the ballot on the presidential races. We'll probably be continuing to dig through those results tomorrow morning with our viewers on the Washington Journal. If you want to look overnight at these results, the place to go, cspan.org. Click on that banner on the top of the page, and you can find all the results for all of tonight's Super Tuesday races.
Yeah, in California and Texas, a lot of delegates at stake in those two. As we told you tonight, for Republicans, there are 854 delegates up for grabs. California makes up 169 for Republicans. And then Democrats, there's 1,420 Democrats, about 30% of their total at stake tonight. And there are California makes up 424 of that 1,420. Dave in Clifton Park, New York, Republican. Hi, Dave.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
I just wanted to say, first and foremost, 10, 15, 20 years ago, we never heard the term fake news, or at least I never did. And I can say this much, you folks at C-SPAN, everything is always factual, and we appreciate that.
Well, Dave, we appreciate you saying that and watching.
The other thing I just want to mention is, unfortunately, I don't think Nikki Haley is going to pull it through this time, but I really wish people would give her a good look. It's time for some fresh, young, new blood.
All right, Dave there in New York. We'll go to Bismarck, North Dakota. John, Republican, your thoughts on Super Tuesday?
Greta, I've called C-SPAN before, my first time getting through, and just to say what a privilege and honor it is for me to be on your program with you. Want to say that I consider myself a very strong Trump supporter. I voted for Trump in 2016, voted for him again, and was very disappointed in 2020. But my strong support for Trump, I'm a little disappointed this evening. I watched on C-SPAN earlier the speech he delivered from Mar-a-Lago, and I found the speech to be almost incoherent. He was all over the place with the speech. He couldn't seem to keep a thought. And his delivery, I was very disappointed. Someone who's always comes across as very strong, I felt came across his delivery as very weak this evening in that speech. I just sensed he didn't have any energy. Maybe he was tired. I don't know. And I really wanted him in that speech tonight to get the Republicans on board and to say, look, if you're a Nikki Haley supporter, if you were a DeSantis supporter, whoever you supported, I want your vote. I'm going to work hard over the next 8 months to get it. I wanted him to reach out to Democrats and say, not only am I going to work hard over the next 8 months to earn your vote, but if I'm elected in November, I'm going to work the next 4 years for you. And that's what I wanted to hear, and I didn't. So a strong Trump supporter is feeling just a little disappointed tonight.
All right. John there in Bismarck, North Dakota. Helen in Cary, North Carolina. Hi, Helen.
Hello.
We're listening to you, Helen. Your thoughts on Super Tuesday?
Well, I voted for Trump because Trump proved what he could do when he was in there before. And our country is hurting badly. And I didn't think he jumped all over the country all over the place tonight. He kept on talking about what he did before and what the Biden administration did, and how other countries hate us. He did keep his train of thought. I don't see why people can't see how the Biden administration is actually being run by Obama. He is really the chairperson, and Google made me lose my telephone because I put on there that he was the chairperson.
Okay, Helen's thoughts there in North Carolina. Some final numbers for you tonight from the Associated Press. Are we there yet? As of Super Tuesday, there will be 132 days until the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee, 167 days until the Democratic National Convention in Chicago, and 245 until the November general election. That does it for tonight, but we will be back tomorrow morning with more conversation with all of you and your reaction to Super Tuesday, 7 a.m. Eastern Time. And a reminder, tonight's program, all of C-SPAN's Campaign 2020 coverage can be found on our website, cspan.org/campaign, and on our free mobile app, C-SPAN Now. We'll bring you to earlier tonight, in case you missed it, former President Donald Trump addressing his supporters in Florida.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the next president of the United States, President Donald J. Trump.
And